Hey everyone, it's Chris Heller, president of Movoto Ojo. No Jeremiah today. He's on vacation, so you got me. Uh, hey, we'll get started in a few minutes, but as always, put in chat where you're joining us from. We'd love to see where everyone's at. And man, the numbers are growing fast. So we'll give it a few minutes here before I formally introduce our guests. We hope everyone's having a great week. See people from all over the place. I
Nice to
haven't,
see who's on the list.
yeah. All right. So as you're joining again, my name is Chris Heller, president of Movoto and Ojo. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. Just let us know where you're from in chat. We're gonna go. Ben Kinney, our guest, and I are gonna just have a conversation. So we're probably not gonna have time for Q&A at the end, but we can do Q&A at any time. If you have a question, put it in the chat or in the Q&A function. Actually, chat's easiest and we'll be happy to do our best to get all those questions answered. So let's get started. We appreciate everyone that's on time. People will continue to join because we're in real estate. Uh, I'm super excited about today. Like we always have great master classes. I think that's one of the things that we do to bring a lot of value to you all. The reason we do them is to bring you value, right? We are in the business of introducing you to buyers and sellers, but we want to do everything we can to help you in all aspects of your business. And that's how we choose the people to join us on the master classes. And today I can't think of a better person in the industry to join us than Ben Kinney. Ben for I think most of you know who he is, but for those of you who don't, Ben is been a one of the most successful team owners with teams in multiple cities and states. He is the CEO and founder of Place. Place is the really only and the I was gonna say the premier, but you're I think in my mind you're the only true platform for teams to help teams grow and become more profitable, regardless of what brokers they're with. And you've owned brokerages and you've been a great salesperson and you've done it all. So Ben, super excited and appreciative of you taking the time to join us because I know you're busy.
Oh, it's my honor. It's always fun to do something for Movoto and Ojo, and especially with you, Chris. You were one of my idols growing up. I still have you on a DVD in my office. And we went from me learning from you to you being my friend over the years. So I appreciate the friendship and the time we get to spend together, climbing mountains and doing whatever we end up doing on those days.
Well, we're due for another good hike. So you have my DVD. Do you still have a DVD player?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I still have a VHS player because I used to work at Hollywood Video. So I love old movies. In fact, I just bought a new cassette player for my car shop the other day because I have all these cassette tapes because the cars only take cassettes, but I wanted to listen to
Old
them.
card.
So, yeah, I'm a
That's
classic.
that's funny. I have I can't tell you how many cassettes and VHSs and everything else I've thrown out over the years. Enough to fill a Hollywood video. Anyways, hey, let's get started. There's so much we can talk about, and there's a lot of things that are timely that we can talk about. At Place, you work with teams and teams all over the country. Movoto, we work with teams and solo agents, agents in our Movoto Select Network, agents in our Lever platform. But I think there's things that I want to start off with teams that we've learned from working with the teams that might be useful or surprising to some of the people that have joined us today, or they'll be watching this when they get the recording. Uh, what are some of the things that that you continue to see, or new things you see that you're learning from all the teams that you get to work with?
In what area?
Yeah, where my mind goes to is things that surprise you. You know, like I'll share. Like for me, I am in this. I'm surprised by how many teams, and it's going to sound bad, for I think in some level it probably is. How many teams don't have good structures in place to really either hold their team members accountable or help their team members truly be successful. Right? There's a lot of looseness around that on a lot of teams.
Good example. We work in an industry surrounded by humans that are amazing at sales and incredible at building relationships. And they've built those muscles over years of working with customers and working their SOI and their database and converting internet leads and going on listed appointments and doing buyer consults and so on. But what's really missing is they don't develop the same muscles into being a business owner. And a business owner requires you to do things differently and requires you to learn different stuff. In fact, I've kind of broken it down for a real estate team that there's 4 like duties of a CEO that you need to do if you run a business. One, you got to find and attract talent in sales and operational roles. That is your job of a CEO, is to grow your business by finding and attracting talent. Number 2, once you find that talent, you got to get that talent into production as fast as possible. Get admin doing great admin work and TCs doing great TC work, or ISAs making having great conversations and setting appointments, and agents working with buyers and sellers and getting pendings and closings as fast as possible. The third duty is, once you get people into production, you got to retain the good ones into your world. You don't want to be this revolving door where people come and work at your company and every 2 years everybody's gone. I still have my very first hire 18 years later, and my very first agent 16 years later. They're all still in my world today, but you got to work hard on that retention. And then the fourth thing is, there's all this other stuff that really a business requires as like the foundation of being a real business: technology implemented, processes, contracts, accounting, bookkeeping, a P&L, payroll, digital advertising, a marketing presentation, scripts and dialogues, like all that stuff. And if you do those 4 things, you can have a really, really profitable, successful real estate business. And if you're not growing, or you're not profitable, or you're not happy with your world, I would focus on fixing those 4 things. So I guess go back to your original question. What are my surprises? My surprises are that consistently our peers don't put enough time into all or some of those 4 items that I mentioned. And then you end up with experts on stage that are saying things like, you don't need to make a profit in your real estate team. You can make money from mortgage or title, that kind of stuff. The second part is true. You can make money from those other services. But if we're going to run a nonprofit, Chris, let's save whales or owls or bears or help homelessness or feed children. Let's not run a real estate business as a nonprofit. That's silly.
Yeah, yes, with a capital S. And that's a really good way to frame it, like with those 4 areas, because those are the 4 areas, and that applies to brokerages too. Now, some people will hear that, and if they have a team, hopefully they're saying, okay, I need to make sure I wrote those down, and I need to spend some time on those. There's other people on this call that aren't on a team, don't have any interest in being a team, and when they hear stuff like that, probably don't want to build a team, which is okay too. I mean, quite frankly, that's why we have our lever platform, which is for those agents that want all those things but don't want to build it themselves. But for individual agents, I think a lot of what Ben just said applies to you too, right? As an individual agent, you have a business, you are the business. And those are the areas that those areas are all applicable to, whether you're a team of 1 or a team of 21.
I got a different list for you. For whatever reason, I tend to put everything into lists, Chris. But I call this other list my real estate success principles. And if a team owner gets their agents to do these three things, they're going to have a really successful team. And if an individual agent isn't getting the amount of production they want in their life, if they focus on these 3 things, they're going to be really successful. And you're going to relate to this very, very easy, because I know it's how you built your business. But the first real estate success principle is say the right things. Is have the right scripts and dialogues and questions to be successful in whatever source of business you're working. Do you have an amazing script for open houses? Do you have an amazing script for working your SOI? Like, what do you say when somebody calls on a sign call? How do you intro? We go list and list and list. That's the first success principle. Say the right things. Also, you could say it the right way, but I would be digressing. Number 2, The second real estate success principle is say it enough times. Are you willing to do enough activity to experience success no matter what market it is? And that is having a standard for the number of calls or open houses or conversations or door knocks or text messages or whatever activity that's going to lead your success. And I'll tell you a very short story. Our organization Place the other day did a open house challenge where I challenged our organization as agents to do 30 open houses in 30 days. And I had 120 agents complete the open house challenge. And the open house challenge changed these agents' lives. There was agents that had never closed a deal that have their first closing or their third closing already. There are agents that hadn't closed deals in months because it was a really hard winter that now have 8 pending or 11 pending. And it was as simple as making one decision. I'm going to do 30 open houses in 30 days. Completely will change the trajectory for the whole rest of the year because they were willing to say it enough times, to do enough activity. The third real estate success principle is say it to the right people. Or another way to put it would be to have enough people to say it to. It's what Movoto is really good at, is you're missing leads and you don't have enough leads in your business, like call Movoto and get more leads coming in. Or if you have enough leads or even too many leads, you should prioritize who you're saying it to every single day so that you're picking the low-hanging fruit first. A lot of people just randomly call people in their database instead of calling the people that looked at a property most recently. They randomly call circle prospecting people they've never met instead of calling the people that looked at a market report or calling their past clients that they already know and trust. But if you literally do those 3 things, you can have as much success as you want as a sales professional. Now, if we go back to the first group, the team, if they have team members that are not producing, I promise you it's because they're not saying the right things, scripts, they're not saying it enough times, activities, or they aren't saying it to the right people or don't have enough leads. Those are the only 3 reasons why we are not successful in real estate right now.
Yeah. Totally agree. And it's not just right now, it's how it's always been and how it will be, right? Those 3 principles are going to be just as important after August 17th as they are today and as they were a year ago. I want to double click on say the right thing on scripts. I don't know, sometime in the last month, I saw a video, an interview, Tom Ferry, Jimmy Burgess, and they were talking about scripts. And I thought it was really good. Like I sent it to my team, say, hey, really good info here. I scrolled down and started reading the comments below the video, and there were agents just bashing the fact that they were using scripts and that they were, that they had canned responses and presentations, everything else. And I was just like, kind of flabbergasted. My whole career was like, I wasn't born a real estate agent. I wasn't born great at making presentations or handling objections, but by using scripts and dialogues and practicing, I got pretty darn good. Why do people have an allergic reaction to that, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. If I was reading those comments, I'd be rolling my eyes and being like, this is so stupid. Here's another way to put it. Scripts, stop calling it scripts. Just start calling it words that work. So why would you go in and have a conversation with your spouse or your kids and use words that didn't work with them? You wouldn't. You found over time there's a way to talk to your child to get them to take action and make improvements in their lives. We've also had conversations with our honey bunnies. We've realized there are words that do not work with them, and we've learned to not use them. And we've adopted the #1 successful script for men in any relationship in the world, which is yes, dear. Like you want to crush relationships, you learn the script, yes, dear. But in real estate, there are words that work. And I've used your words for a really long time, Chris, because I realized that they worked for you. Now, when you listen to those scripts on a video or you read them on a piece of paper, they don't sound authentic.
Yeah.
But when you say it to somebody, it feels authentic. right? Like if I was to say, here's your sphere script, you would read that and be like, oh, that sounds dumb. But when you hear me reach out to you and Chris, and I have an intro combo and say, hey, how are you doing? How's the family? What's going on? And you say good, everything, and they ask me how I'm doing, and I say great, and I say, hey, just out of curiosity, Chris, I was thinking about you, and I was trying to plan the rest of my year. Do you or your wife have any real estate related plans for the rest of the year? Because I want to make sure that I'm available or I'm prepared to answer any questions or to support you in those plans. That doesn't sound bad. It sounds like I care.
And it's a script.
And it's a script.
And it's saying the right thing. It's yeah, I don't know how, I really don't know how people think about getting better if they don't have those right things to say and they don't practice those right things to say. I really, the only, if you're not going to practice, the only other way to do it is to, as you said, in one of your principles, is just doing it a lot. Unfortunately, when you do it a lot with buyers and sellers, you're kind of practicing on your buyers and sellers. I'm a big proponent of practicing before and after, but not during an interaction with the buyer or seller. But that is key. It's like, I don't know that there's anyone on here. In fact, I would venture to say that everyone who's watching this is here for a reason. And one of the reasons is they want to get better, right? They want to learn something new. And the thing we're talking about is actually something that can cause people and anyone, you, me, everyone else on here, to get better, is by practicing and saying these things more often.
I wish that all the people that made comments on social media or in Facebook groups like had to attach their tax return, and they had to tax a note from their doctor on how healthy they were, and they had to tax a statement from their spouse and their kids about how good of a husband or wife or partner or father or mother they were, and they put all that information in there, and then I could decide if I cared what they said or not, because the vast majority of them, I wouldn't care. I'm getting advice from people that are trying to validate the dismal results they have in all areas of their lives.
Yeah, I think that you bring up a really good point. I've had the same thought multiple times. I think I I see a lot of agents asking questions on social media to a big group of agents, and they get a lot of answers. And I wonder, how do they sort through those? How do they discern, you know, the good advice from the others? I'm a big advocate of getting help and asking questions, but I've always been really selective on who I'm going to ask and who I'm going to get help from. If it's I'm only going to talk to people that are doing what I want to be doing, or doing something much more or much better than I am. Because anyone else, it's an opinion, and we know everyone has lots of opinions. So anyways, I don't want to preach about those things, but I hope that people will think about, look, at if you have questions or need help, don't be shy about doing it. Be a demand for answers, but be selective on who you're going to for those questions, or go to the people that have the experience, that have done it, or are doing the things that you want to be doing, or at the level you want to be doing them at.
Agreed.
Let's go ahead. I'm sorry, were you gonna make a comment?
I just said agreed.
Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit. We there's changes in the industry coming. We could debate if they're seismic changes or big changes or anything. It doesn't really matter. There's changes. And one of the things that we've always thought about, and I know you have mentioned this too, is, agents have to have a clear value proposition, and they have to be able to communicate it effectively and confidently. I think moving forward, that's going to be more important than ever, because consumers over time will learn that they're going to have to make decisions on who's going to represent them or who's going to help them. And they're going to have questions. And one of the logical questions is, why should I hire you over someone else? I had to choose a new doctor. I actually had to choose a doctor. I haven't had one for a long time. And I had an appointment this morning, and my appointment was to find out if this is the guy that I want to be, my cardiologist. And, and that's the questions I walked in with. What do you do that's different? And why should you be my doctor over someone else? And I think in real estate, we have to do that. I have specific examples when I was an agent where where I got listings or got properties under contract. And when I asked the client why they chose me, I heard him say, because when we asked the other agents, you know, what do they do that's different or why we should hire them, you're the only one that had an answer. Which was like good for me to hear, but frightening to think that none of the agents that they talked to did. Any thoughts on how important or what we need to be thinking about in terms of value propositions moving forward?
Yeah, let me tell you a story. Uh, I love real estate. I love owning real estate. I love investing in real estate. I love looking at real estate. I scroll real estate at night. I look at ranches at night. I look at houses. Uh, I'm not supposed to say this, probably HR perspective. I call it ranch porn. I like scroll ranch porn, just looking for different properties around the United States. Like I love real estate. But also on the weekends, I like to go to open houses. And I've recently bought a home in Arizona, so I spent a little bit of time in Arizona, which I really enjoyed, by the way. So I like to go to houses, and there's really incredible homes in the area that I like to look in, like homes I've never been in before with crazy things. But I show up to this open house once, Chris, and I walk up to the door and I open the door. And as soon as I open the door, across the doorway was this red rope, like the movie theater kind of red rope, and it was clipped. The agent walks up to the door, dressed professionally, smiles at me and says, "Hey, thanks for coming to my open house." First of all, the sellers requested that people either take their shoes off or they put on some booties. Which one do you prefer? And I said, I guess I'll take the booties. So he hands me some booties. I put them on my feet. He said, second, the sellers requested that everybody that come into the open house register in advance. He hands me this little tablet with an app on there, and I fill out my name and information. I hand it back to him. He looks and makes sure that I didn't put Donald Duck or go to hell or FU in there, and then I put real information. Then he says, welcome to 1334 Main Street. He reaches down, he opens up the red cord, walks me in. He says, before you walk around today, let me tell you a couple of quick things and I'll leave you be. He gives me 5 or 6 tidbits about the property. Then he lets me walk around. As I walk back through the living room, he asked me a couple of nice questions. And then towards the end, he says, what do you think? I said, I really love the home. I could live in a home like this, but I don't like the position of the lot. I feel like all the neighbors and from the road, you're kind of looking at the front of the house, and I'm looking for something more private. And he said, hey, our market's really tight right now. It's really hard to find an amazing property because the most amazing properties are sold off market that nobody knows about. Would it be of value to you if I could get you into a couple properties that are currently not publicly marketed, that are off market, pocket listings, so to speak, and I could show you a few of those? I said, yeah, that would be interesting to me. He says, great.
How do you say no to that?
I said, great. And I walked out. The next day, he reaches out to me. Thanks for coming to the open house. Enjoyed meeting you. By the way, you mentioned you would like to look at some properties. Tell me a little bit more what's most important to you. And he said, I have one idea for a property you should go see, not currently on the market. Now, I have place partners in Arizona, some of the best agents in the world that are my business partners. But if this guy found me a property that was not on the market, that nobody else brought me, I would use him to buy this property without questioning, because that is bringing me value that nobody else is. So when we think about these changes of, are buyers going to be willing to pay buyer's commission if the seller isn't? I'd pay this guy's commission if the seller wasn't, because he's bringing me a property that nobody else has brought me. So when you think about your value, our real job is to connect sellers who would like to sell with buyers who would like to buy. And the more we do that, the less we have to worry about compensation or changes to the industry or any of that. But what is your unique value going to be? I think what I just mentioned might be one of them. Think, Chris, if you and I went into a Ford dealership and we walked in the dealership and we found this nice salesperson and we said, hey, do you have any trucks? And they're like, I don't know. We're going to Best Buy. We're like, we're looking for a laptop. I'm like, hey, we're looking for a laptop. Where are your laptops? And like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, we wouldn't work with them.
Yeah.
Like we need to have 10 amazing properties in our pocket at all times that we could talk about. So when somebody comes in and says, do you have a laptop or a truck? We're like, actually, I do. Let me tell you about a couple that you should know about. And that is real value. And that agent I met is never going to have an issue no matter what happens in the industry. And he met me at an open house.
Yeah. I love it. I love great salespeople and great salesmanship, and that was exhibited by that story you shared in that agent. And yeah, it makes me think a, a value proposition isn't just something you say; it's something you demonstrate, and that agent demonstrated it. Now, if he didn't meet you at the open house and it was at a buyer consult or whatever, and you said, well, tell me, why should you be my agent? He could have articulated exactly what he does and exactly what he did for you, and it would have been just as effective. You would have said, all right, that's impressive. I like that. Um, and here's the thing, people pay for value. People are willing to pay for value. They always have been. In 1996, I got a call from a broker who knew that I was looking to buy a car wash or a laundromat. He said, hey, I know you've been looking to buy a car wash or laundromat. I have one, but you'd have to agree to pay my commission. And it's whatever it was, it's $30,000 or $40,000. Because if I tell you about it, you have to agree. I said, yes, I'll pay your commission all day long. If I buy it, absolutely. Like, wasn't even a question. But he was bringing me value. He was bringing me something I've been looking for and hadn't been able to find, and he found it. So I think it's a great story and a great example of, as agents, what do we do? And that applies to every aspect of the business. Like when we're following up, I cringe when I hear agents say, hey, I was just checking in, or hey, just was called to say hi and see if there's any new plans. Like, I don't need to be checked in with, and I don't even know what that means, frankly. But if you're going to call me or contact me with something of value. Now, I have salespeople contact me. I have close salespeople. I have salespeople contact me on a regular basis, and the good ones are always bringing something of value. It may not be what I need or want at that moment in time, but they're not just checking in. They're like, so be thinking about what are things of value. Like if you're working with a buyer, what's valuable to a buyer? It's, usually it's information, information about new properties, information about different ways of buying. Same with sellers, information about what may have happened in their neighborhood, or the house that when you talk to them, they were mostly comparing theirs to. Those are things of value. So
You know,
value propositions are important.
if I'm on the phone with a Movoto lead and that person is saying, you know what, we're not ready yet. We're 6 or 12 months out. Here's one of my favorite scripts that I know we've already discussed. They aren't going to like, but here's one of my favorite scripts. I said, awesome. Hey, before I let you go, I don't want to bother you, but I know this isn't for you, but just out of curiosity, do you know anybody that would be interested in a really good deal? I have a handful of properties that nobody knows about. I have a handful of properties that are distressed sellers that are unique opportunities to buy something under market value. And I know you're not ready, so this isn't right for you, but do you have another friend that I could connect to one of these amazing deals? And I would tell you 50% of the time they say, well, we might be interested. And I said, but you told me you aren't ready for a year. These deals won't be available in a year. They might not be available after this week. They're like, well, and they start backtracking. I'm like, well, we should get together and figure out, one, what a good deal looks like for you, and two, what that perfect property, feels like and where it's located. And if I don't have that right deal, I'll make sure that I dig one up. That's what I do. I help people get good deals.
Yeah, I love it. The same thing applies to sellers, right? You have a seller you're talking to, nah, no plans to move. Hey, that's okay. Actually, the reason I was calling is I have two cash buyers. One's an investor, one's a family. They're looking the home. Who are your neighbors that would like to sell their home now without having to put it on the market, getting top dollar and probably saving money? Well, wait a minute. Then all of a sudden they're like, well, what type of home are they looking for?
Would,
Those
would, would you be offended if I brought you an offer over market value on your home? Like, that's a script, by the way. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm helping a lot of my clients sell their home for over asking. Would you be offended if I did that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that was my line for sale by owners. I had a short script for the first call for sale by owner. The last line in that was, hey Ben, would you be offended if I were to stop by and preview your home? Like,
So
who's gonna say, yes, that would offend me? Everyone that's like, they can't say no to that. Yeah.
it's such a good script.
Um, so so again, back to value propositions. As agents, we have to deliver value, right? If we're not delivering value, we have no value, right? If you um I've shared this before. My accountant sends me an engagement letter every year after he files my taxes, which takes a lot and costs a lot of money. But after he does that, he sends me an engagement letter every year. I have to sign a new letter saying, and the letter is, hey, Chris, here's what we do, here's what we don't do, and here's what it's going to cost you. Here's what we charge. Um, if I'm getting value from him, or let me say it this way, the moment I don't feel I'm getting value from him, that letter is not going to get signed, right?
Mm.
I'm going to say, hey, Ben, who's your accountant? I need a new accountant. Um, right? But as long as I'm getting value, I'm going to do that. So he has to demonstrate value to me, just like we have to demonstrate value to our clients. And I think that's going to be, it's always been important. I think it's going to be more important as we move on, because there's going to be competition, and there's going to be, and consumers are going to be more aware of, hey, doesn't matter who I use, any agent can help me, right? That's how it used to be. Moving forward, it's like, hey, it matters. If someone's going to be my agent, I want to make sure I'm making the right choice.
There's some old videos on YouTube of my listing presentation. You can like search Ben Kinney's listing presentation. By the way, it still works today. It's basically the same listing presentation that I still do today. I've just made it look nicer and better design and better touch materials. And but it's the same exact script. But the reason I bring that up is that the vast majority of my listing appointments, Chris, were kind of based off how you taught me to generate business. They were canceled expireds or FSBOs. So the majority of my listing appointments, I was in a competitive situation.
Yep.
I wasn't a sphere situation. Sphere, you walk in, you ask them questions, you see what they want to put their home up for the market for, and you sign the paperwork. So when agents only work their SOI, they aren't used to delivering the value and explaining what they do that's different. But when you build a business based on canceled expired FSBOs and you know that you're one of 5 agents they're interviewing, you set up for explaining how are you different and what are you going to do for the fees that you charge. The biggest change coming up is that for years we've listed sellers and we've held those listings as inventory on our shelves. But starting in August, we're going to be required to list buyers. And now the buyers that are coming into your open houses and registering on your website and calling on your signs might already be listed. So your job is to explain your value and list those buyers before they get on the phone with me, because once they're on the phone with me, they're not going to be available for you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, that you bring up a really good point. I was sharing that, shortly after the settlement came out in May, with a group of agents. Like, hey, you understand that in the future, there's going to be a land grab. There's going to be a race, and the agents that are the most effective at meeting the most consumers and delivering a value proposition and getting a commitment from them are going to have the opportunity to do more business than they probably have ever done. And the ones that don't are going to be standing there going, wait, what happened? How come everyone's already paired up? Um, Makes me think of how I used to be at dances. Wait, why am I not dancing with anyone?
Yeah, right. Everybody already had a match.
Um, so yeah, I agree with you totally. Uh, it's it's like taking the listing opportunities and now just doubling it, because now we're going to be doing the same thing with buyers, which we should have been doing all along, but now it's not going to be an option.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears again. Let's talk about because we have all sorts of people on this call. We have, top teams that are tuning in and joining us. We have newer agents, we have everything in between. For the newer agents getting in, like when you and I got in the business, well, we didn't get in at the same time. I'm much older than you, but when we got started, things were simpler because there were fewer ways of doing business. There was less technology to leverage. And we picked one or two or three things. It seems to me now, and I could be 100% wrong, but it seems to me now that the agents have a hard time like getting really good at anything because there's so much to choose from and there's so many different ways of doing things. Is that, you think that's accurate, or is that just,
I think there's a lot of distractions, Chris. But if I was launching a brand new business in a new market, I would go back to the basics again. Place is doing a challenge starting July 1 for the month of July and August, where it's 50 open houses through July and August or 5,000 dials. And we know we're doing that because I want to get people into activity for the busiest 2 months so that the next few months after, which is traditionally slow, is no longer slow for them. But that's just going back to the basics. And there are 1,000 other options they could do, which are basically distractions. If you just got back to the basics, you would get back into production.
Yeah, I like it being framed that way. Like instead of there's so many different choices, there's just so many different distractions. And um, you know, it seems like a lot of years ago and even maybe now, people didn't like thinking of themselves as salespeople. But if you think about it, in any sales industry, in any sales role, in any industry, um, there's just some basic things you do, right? Every day there's two basic things. I asked my team this question as a trick question because I've asked them that before. But I said, hey, what are the two most important things you have to do every day? And the answer was generate new business and follow up on the prospects that you have. And that's really basic. And that is, as you said, going back to the basics with what we need to be doing in the activities. So here's a question. Why don't more agents do that?
Oh, I think a lot of people are just looking for an easier thing to do than work. I had this agent come up to me at one of my recent conferences, Chris, and he said, hey, I'm working really hard. And he said, someday I'm going to be where you're at. And I said, I have 100% belief that you are, but tell me why. And he said, because I want to do what you do every day. And I said, that's awesome. I spent a couple hours on the phone reaching out to prospects, lead generating. My afternoons I spend in appointments. And then in the evening, I clean up all the stuff that didn't get done and respond to all the people that need to get responded. What do you do every day? And he said, I do the same exact thing. I said, exactly. Even 20 years later, I might be having my appointments might be recruiting appointments or signing new customers or buying new companies, but I'm still lead generating and having conversations and fighting fires. We do the same thing, just over time, we change the amount of money we make for each one of those things.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't change. People, oh, when you went from being an agent to the president of this company or the CEO of that company, things change. Like, I don't know, it still did the similar activities every day, still do every day. Um, yeah, I think you're right though. I think there is work. I have some evidence that is the issue. Um, I don't know, a few months ago posted um just some observations about work ethic. And I got lit up pretty good in the comments, like, people going, hey, boomer, we don't want to hear about working hard, and all this stuff, um, which I got a lot of chuckles out of. But it was like, uh, and I'm not, like, I don't like the stereotype or say it's a generational thing or this or that, even if it may be accurate. I just think people, uh, they've lost the connection between getting what they want and having what they want, the life they want, and what it takes to do that. And uh, boy, if there's any way to do it other than working really hard and getting really good at what you do, then hey, share it with me.
I came up with this list of things that I think kill businesses. Uh, one is optimism. You you think things are going to get better, so you don't make changes. You don't cut your expenses. You don't change your activities in the spring when rates drop, like whatever that might be. You just don't make change because you're too optimistic. Uh, Number two, patience. You're too impatient for results, so you give up right before you get there. And the most successful people in the world understand that real success compounds over time, and it takes patience to build that. And the success that I'm having today is the work that I did last month and last year and the year before and the year before that. And then the third thing was boredom. What we do every single day is boring,
Yeah.
but boring pays extremely well. Being creative doesn't pay well. It has a high level of failure, but boredom pays really, really well. Being patient pays really, really well in the long term. Not being so optimistic pays really, really well in the long term. Like they're very, very simple things that would make a big, big
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. You just made me think of my first coach and mentor. You say you have to get good with repetitious boredom. That was his phrase, repetitious boredom. That's the things you do every day that are just boring, but you got to get really good with that. And that's so true. I think there's another phenomenon because I hear it a lot and see it a lot. Um, and that is um, I think there's some people that feel like they have to love to do something, they have to love it. Um, and and I've never understood that. I remember early in career, I was at a conference and someone came and said, "You must love helping people and selling houses because you sell so many and help so many people." I said, "No, I actually don't. I love what it provides me to do. Now, do I like helping people and them being satisfied? Of course, I'm a human being. Um, but what I love is the results of those activities and what that provides for me and allows me to do. Those are the things I love. Those are the things that I get excited about."
It's such a smart comment, Chris. Like, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell in one of his extra long books that he writes, was talking about kids that were told they were good at math became good at math and loved math. Even if the first couple of years they literally sucked and they didn't do good, they were consistently told, "You're amazing at math." Isn't that funny? Like,
Yeah.
what ends up happening is we end up enjoying things that we're good at, but most of us aren't willing to put the time in until we become good at it. I don't enjoy prospecting. I've become good at it. I enjoy the results, but as you look up, I don't mind doing it anymore, but I dreaded it 20 years ago.
Yeah. Hey, there may have been as many days as I said to myself and sometimes out loud, I don't want to do this. I don't want to make another call. I don't want to be doing this right now. But the key is I kept doing it because the second thought I had was, I don't listen to my wants. I don't listen to my don't wants. I
And
do what I need to do to accomplish my goals. And that was just a trigger and a mindset that I created. But I was human like everyone else. Like I I I I've shared this story before. I lead generated for 26 years without missing a day. Did my lead generation and lead follow-up. I never went to work for 26 years without doing those two activities.
it was my takeaway from my Chris Heller DVD. Uh, Aside from the Chris Heller cares sign on the freeway, because you guys signed up for the freeway cleanup thing. I never was able to get that to happen in my town. But there was two takeaways. One, your affirmations. Like I used to use a Chris Heller affirmation before I walked into a listing presentation because I was nervous. I was like, my hands were shaking in the beginning. I used to just say, "I'm the best at what I do. I'm the best at what I do. Nobody knows this better than me. Nobody, I just used to say that to myself because I know that when I was saying it out loud, that little voice in my head wasn't saying it. But
Yep.
the other thing that I took that stood in my life for 20 years now, Chris, is any day I don't prospect is not a work day. And you said that in that video that if I don't lead generate, if I don't prospect today, I don't consider it a work day. And that's just resonated with me that coming to the office and being busy and doing stuff isn't work. Moving the business forward and generating business and that is work. And when you show up and do that, you get to count it as a work day.
Yeah. No, it is. And look, there's people that watch this or listen to this and go, well, there's other ways or easier ways. Look, we're not saying there isn't. We're not saying this is the only way, but we both know this works. We both know that work works. Uh, and I used to say, because I did it, you know, uh, just being persistent and consistent would have me win more times than not. And then if you add skill and enthusiasm on top of being persistent and consistent, the sky's the limit.
100%. I actually think that's a job of a leader, is to spread enthusiasm. You should be coming in with your pockets filled with enthusiasm every day that it's going to be okay, and you spread it. I like to use movie analogies, and I love the movie Braveheart. But there's two people on the battlefield on the Braveheart movie. There was the British king eating grapes and sending his archers and his cavalry and everybody forward. And then there was William Wallace, who painted his face blue, put on a kilt and said, "Follow me, we got this." And in uncertain times, that's what our people, our organization, our companies require us. They want to see the leader with their face painted blue saying, "Follow me, we got this."
Yeah, it's what a leader does, and you're right. And if I'm an individual agent and I'm listening to this conversation right now, you're a leader. You're your leader. You have to. Like, we're all human. We all have doubts. We all have those nights where you lay in bed and go, "Can I do this? Why me? Why does someone else think I can do this?" Those are those are human thoughts. But the next thought you have is the important one. You know what? I can do this. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to give it my all. Maybe they don't think I can do it, but I'm going to show them. Those are the things. So if you don't have a leader that is spreading that enthusiasm for you, then you got to generate yourself. And that's the difference between the agents that grow great businesses and the ones that struggle or never achieve their full potential.
The famous Zig Ziglar line when the guy walks up to him and says, "Hey, Zig, here, the problem with all your motivational crap is that motivation never lasts." And then he responds with, "Neither do showers. That's why I take them often." Like if you need motivation, go to the well of motivation every day. If you need purpose or you need drive or you go to that well every single day. And if you don't see a well in sight, you go find it, you track one down.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, when you mentioned affirmations, I still use affirmations. And I'll use them like if I say an affirmation and oftentimes I don't really feel it. Like it's like um I when I wake up during the middle of the night, or if I've been up too late and I have to get up early and I know I'm gonna be really tired, I have this affirmation that I've done it so long for so many years it pops into my head. I wake up refreshed, energized, and full of vibrant energy. And I'll say that, but I'll be like, I wake up refreshed, energized, full of vibrant energy. And I have to say it again. And like by the third time, I feel that I will wake up refreshed, energized, and full of vibrant energy.
Did you
Um,
say that? Did you say that at 5 a.m. when I picked you up to climb Camelback Mountain?
it was probably at 4:30 when the alarm went off. But at 5 o'clock, I was ready to roll.
Was it halfway up the mountain too? Did you said I still have energy and I'm still climbing this mountain at 100-degree T?
I I as you know, a couple years ago I climbed Kilimanjaro, and the night of the summit, I must have said, the harder it gets, the stronger I get. The higher we go, the stronger I must have said that several hundred times over the last 7 hours. It was
Yeah.
just every step. But that's what my mind needed to get my body to do what I needed it to do.
Yeah, so true.
All
But
right.
what was David Goggins said, yeah, it was in the Living with the Seal book when Jesse Itzler was down in his basement with David Goggins, and David Goggins is training Jesse Itzler on day one, and he says, "All right, do a pull up," and Jesse does 4 pull ups or whatever, and then he says, "Now what?" And he says, "Do it again," and he does 2, and then he says, "Now what?" And he says, "Do it again," and he does 1, and he says, "Now what?" And he does it again, and he does half a 1, and he says, "Well, all right, I can't do it. What are we gonna do?" He's like, "No, we are staying down here until you do 100." And then the next day he comes back and says, "Well, why'd you make me do that?" He's because I needed to show you that your mind gives up at 40% when you still have 60% left inside you.
Yeah.
Your mind is telling you to quit at 40%. You still have 60% left. That's a
Yeah,
good lesson for us to sit on.
it is. It is. I could I've been having this conversation with you, like totally forgot there's several hundred people on here and several thousand that'll be watching this. I could just keep, I could keep this conversation with you going like for several hours. So always like talking with you and spending time. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation. I hope this conversation you've had between you and I, that the people that have been eavesdropping got something of value or something that they'll think about differently or something that they'll put into action.
Yeah, this is what it's like to drive around in a Bronco with Chris and I. Like we have these conversations and tell these stories and talk about the challenges and talk about it's just what it's like to like live in our world, which is why we didn't have anybody to dance with at the dance.
Yeah, yeah, that maybe that'll be a whole conversation we'll do. Yeah, no, I never had any dates either. So all right, man. Well, thank you, Ben. Hey, if people want to learn more about Place, they want to get in touch with you, what's the best and easiest way?
I don't traditionally like to sell or push anything, but if somebody wants to reach out, you have a problem or you have a question, you have a dad joke and you just need a friend in life, you can send me a message on LinkedIn or you can send me something on Instagram or the socials or send me an email at bennettplace.com and I'd be happy to talk to anybody that needed a friend or needed an idea or something or got something out of today's call. I'd love to hear what your takeaways were.
Cool. Well, we thank everyone for taking the time out of your day to watch this and join us. We appreciate you. We hope it brought you value. That's why we're here. And that's what we want to continue to do. And we appreciate the partnership. And again, thanks for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.